Call our meeting to order. Are there any additional or deletions to the agenda other than the one that Matt handed me? I've got one addition to the agenda. I believe it's under continuing business or old business. Unfinished business, there we go. Presentation on the State Street water main project. Do you want to add that? Anything else? Is there any way we can turn the TV off here, the sound off this? We're getting an echo.
Either mute the TV or mute Greg. One of them.
I'm sure people hearing me once is quite enough. All right, thank you. So I didn't hear anything else for the additions or deletions to the agenda, so with that, we'll entertain a motion to accept the amended agenda. Support. Motion support, one last chance. All those in favor say yes.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion's passed, we have an agenda. Roll call. Completed, or do we need? Okay, we have roll taken. Next up would be Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone please rise and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll entertain motion for the approval of the minutes of the September 14, 2021 regular meeting and the September 21, 2021 special meeting and September 21, 2021 closed session. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support?
Okay, any additions or corrections to those? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Motion's carried.
Dave, we might need more chairs.
There's seats up here too, here.
Nobody wants to sit in the front.
Oh, I didn't know you were right there,
It's just,
sorry.
it's just like school.
That's fine.
School and church, right? Or you might get called on. So we'll move down to hearings. First up, we're going to hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter, as the agenda will allow, for the purpose of determining whether the following described premises shall be designated and established as a commercial rehabilitation district, PA number 210 of 2005, and with the property at 200 West Center, also known as 29-51-031-028-00. And it's known that way to Kathy and some of her friends, but the rest of us would be 200 West Center. So, who's taking the lead on this? Is that you, Eric?
Yep.
Please go. Oh, yeah, let's have a motion to open the hearing, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Support?
And a motion support, any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. We are hoping, thank you. Take it away, Eric.
All right. As you mentioned, it's 200 West Center Street, and Aaron's going to bring up an aerial. But as he brings up the aerial, we'll go ahead and start talking about it. What we're looking at is a commercial rehabilitation district. We do a lot with OPRAs, obsolete property tax exemptions. They work very similarly, but there's some nuances, some different nuances to it. This provides an abatement of property taxes generated for new investment for a period up to 10 years. The OPRAs are up to 12. Can be used for commercial and multifamily uses. Rehabilitation is defined underneath this particular act. Qualified facilities that are required to restore or modify the property to an economically efficient condition. So, when we talk about OPRAs, usually we're talking about obsolescence more. Here we're talking about economically efficient condition. The new investment in the property must result in improvements to more than 10% of the true cash value of the property at the commencement of the rehabilitation of the qualified facility. Rehabilitation includes the following improvements: floor loads, corrections of deficient or excessive height, new or improved fixed building equipment including heating, ventilation, lighting, reducing multi-story facilities to 1 or 2 stories, improved structural support including foundations, improved roof structure and cover, floor replacement, improved wall replacement, improved interior and exterior appearances of the buildings, or other physical changes required to restore or change the property to to an economically efficient condition. Once the district has been established, the property owner may file the application for the commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate. After they do that, because the city has 60 days to review the application and either approve or deny by resolution. If the application is approved by resolution, that resolution and application is sent to the State Tax Commission for their verification of denial or approval. But there's also, obviously, you can pass a resolution to deny. The property in question here is going down the rehabilitation side of it because of those heating, ventilation, and lighting issues in the property. As you drive by that building, you would look at it and say, it doesn't have any issues, it's a pretty nice looking building. But the actual bones of it, from those standpoints, meet that definition here. When it's all said and done, this will be I can't talk specifically about it, but it will be a new commercial use for someone to move their office into. So that building will finally be occupied after it's been vacant for going on probably 7 years. It's been vacant. So the college did purchase it one time to move their ACAP program there, and that did not go through. That's out on the old church on the corner of Purdy and West Superior Street now. So we're trying to find a new reuse for this building here. Brian Smith's here, he's representing the property, so if you have any questions about any of that stuff, tonight we're establishing a district, and at some point in the future, when the plans are ready and such, then the application will be submitted to this board.
Okay. Who has the first question for Eric?
What's a doctor's office?
It was a doctor's office
Yeah.
previous, yes. Yep. And as soon as they moved out, it's been vacant
It's
since
vacant,
then.
yeah.
I have no question.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. It is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the commission and have questions? Apparently not. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. And the motion is carried, the hearing is closed. Our next order of business is to set a public hearing for Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 6 p.m. or as soon as thereafter as the agenda will allow, to consider a request from Avalon and Tahoe Manufacturing Incorporated for a PA 198 Industrial Facilities Tax Exemption Certificate. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Have motion and support to set the hearing. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. That motion is carried and the hearing is set. Thank you. Moving down to resolutions. Consideration of a resolution authorizing the establishment of a commercial rehabilitation district for the property located at 200 West Center Street, also known as 29-51-031-028-00. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Have a motion support. Any additional comments or questions?
Would you maybe explain to folks what it means to approve an introduction? This is not a passage. This
No,
is
I think
introducing-
this is an adoption.
This is the adoption, yeah.
It's not hearing.
No, we're on G1.
Oh, right, sorry.
We are establishing the district in this motion.
Got it.
We had the
I
hearing.
can't keep up.
Sorry, you guys don't have enough questions to slow us down, so. Need to bring a bag of questions next time. Does anybody have any questions on this? So this will establish the district that Eric just talked about that was being requested for that building in Center Street.
That's correct. This will be the formal resolution that allows the developers to go ahead with their plans so they can start construction, without risking the opportunity to use the district, yes.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good luck with this project, too. Next up is consideration of a resolution to introduce ordinance number 822 to amend the zoning map of the city of Elma as it appears in section 32-32 of the ordinances of the city of Elma. This ordinance is to rezone the property at 842 Warwick Drive from R3 multifamily residential district to CI campus institutional district. This will be subject to the conditions set forth in the conditional rezoning agreement and set final approval for October 12, 2021. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion support, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. And I shall abstain, please. Okay, that has passed. Next up is consideration of a resolution to introduce ordinance number 823 to amend 60-94 of the Elma City Code of Ordinances to reduce the required distance between body piercing establishments within the city of Elma and set the final approval for October 12th, 2021. Your pleasure.
So
Ahead of me.
moved. Sorry.
You're faster than me, Michelle.
Sorry.
Do I have support? I missed it if I did. We have support. Okay, comments or questions, or any background from staff? Matt, did you or Eric have anything to?
Yeah, I can walk you through some stuff. Currently, in our ordinance, we have buffers, or setbacks, some people know them as, for body piercing, and the next item here is for tattoo establishments. Back in 2010-ish time period, they were not allowed in the B1 districts, the downtown district. An ordinance was established, and as part of that back and forth for the ordinance, a buffer of 1,000 feet was established between tattoo establishments and 500 feet from parks, schools, and churches. We've had a request for another individual coming into the downtown that would like to open a tattoo establishment, but they're within 360-some foot of another one. So they have requested that we look at a text amendment in the zoning ordinance, is what's before you. And we had a public hearing with the planning commission at our last meeting to look at dropping that buffer on both those for body piercing and the tattoos to 300. So you still have some buffer, and that's consistent with our 300 foot that we have for medical marijuana facilities. And that's also consistent when we send out public notices for public hearings for something happening at a certain parcel. We send out the 300 foot property from there. So that's why we landed on 300 foot for the new establishments of these new ordinance and these text amendments. When you look at the introduced ordinance, the only piece that changes is those buffers. There's no other wording that's being changed in the ordinance at all. So, any questions?
Okay, who has the first question?
So it says in what's written here in the introduction, the distance between the body piercing establishments, so you mentioned churches and schools, it doesn't change the distance there?
It does,
or
300.
does?
It'll
But
be
it
all
doesn't make-
consistent, 3 to 300. Yep. In the introduction of the ordinance, it should have that, the actual wording in there. It'll be buffer between the establishments themselves. It was 1,000, that'll be 300. And then there's a buffer or setback from those other uses, that will be down to 300 as opposed to 500.
Okay, so even though in this part it just says between the
Yes, yeah,
establishments,
yeah,
it's all.
yeah.
I just want
Because
to clarify.
from the gentleman's that's looking to open the business, he was far enough away from all those other uses. His use is at 1,000 feet, and if you take 1,000 feet, it takes up, where the current one is located, it takes about 75% of our rentable commercial space in downtown. So, but that's what we put in there as we talked through things back then, to allow for it in the B1 district, so.
Well, Eric, back then, I recall there was a great deal of public concern that these establishments were going to create issues within our community. If you checked with the police department on this, are they okay with essentially adding more of these to downtown?
We've had zero issue with these. Back then, we did, it was a very, talked about issue.
Yeah,
Yep,
very
talked about
contentious,
issue.
yeah.
And this is why we ended up on 1,000 feet. I mean, nowhere in our ordinance do you see something that drastic from a setback standpoint. Nothing close to that. But that's how, sometimes you move forward with things. You kind of compromise, and that's what we had. Nowadays, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if you don't have a tattoo, you're kind of on the other side of things. So, life's flip-flopped a little bit.
Look how
So,
progressive we're
yeah. Well, it is. I mean, when I talk to people, it's, if you're under my age group, it's weird if you don't have it. So, you don't have one.
And more, I'm told I'm on the other side of things.
Yeah. So, to kind of keep things, to move forward with the times and to help, bring another business to downtown. That's why we brought this before Planning Commission and the public hearing and now before you to introduce, so.
Okay. Thank you. Who else has questions? No? Okay. Well, with that, all those in favor would be yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Any opposed would be a no? Motion's carried.
Greg, I will abstain. I will abstain.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Next item is consideration of a resolution to introduce ordinance number 824 to amend section 60-95 of the Elma City Code of Ordinances to reduce the required distance between tattoo establishments within the city of Elma and to set the final approval for October 12th, 2021. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
A motion support. Any additional comments? I mean, you kind of
Same
covered it right
explanation.
there. So does anybody have any other questions or anything here? So I think it's kind of the same thing, only different. Okay, with that, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no.
I'll abstain again, Greg.
Okay. And then motion's carried. Moving on to agreements. Consideration of a resolution approving a final change order on 2019 Hayes Avenue Capital Improvement Project for a decrease in the contract with Ward's Excavating in the amount of $9,790.51. What went wrong? We spent less money? Let's get a motion first, if we could, please.
Michelle did the motion.
Michelle did, okay, Michelle, we got a second? Okay. Is that?
I was just saying, Michelle's kicking us along tonight, we're
No
making
doubt.
like grass grow under our
Can't
feet.
keep up. Comments from staff?
Yes,
David, there
the
you are.
increase, it's not totally unheard of, we have had a few of these. The reasons for this is less for slope restoration, and we also didn't use as many water main fittings, we didn't have to do as many over and unders as we thought we would have to do for it, so, really not monumental changes, just things we anticipated ahead of time we didn't have to do, so. We'll spend it elsewhere, I'm sure.
Okay. Comments or questions? Now's the time to go. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. And that motion is carried also. Thank you. Moving down to reports, commissioners may receive the following report by one resolution. Commissioners may remove the item within the section for individual discussion and vote. Since we only have one from the police department, August 2021 report. Your pleasure.
Move to receive.
Support.
Motion support, comments, questions from the police department? It's a big report, they've been very active.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's a good thing, but apparently a lot of customers out there, so we appreciate your work. Anybody else have anything? Okay, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Looks like we've received the report. Thank you very much. New business. We'd like to appoint-
Unfinished.
Oops,
Unfinished.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, unfinished business, yes. I had it right here, too. We have for unfinished business, a presentation on the State Street Water Main Project. Looks like David's jumping up to get the podium, so.
You have to hear from me again, it's the second week in a row, so. Hopefully it's not total deja vu, we've got some slides to help illustrate this a little bit better. Thanks, Aaron. Theater. Maximize that. Okay, this is the similar presentation what we had last Tuesday night. This one had some time to prepare for and show you more what we're talking about, so you didn't have to look at my fingers when I was trying to illustrate very loosely on the board up there last week, so. Show you where we're at now, where we'd like to go, and eventually where we will go in the future, but this hopefully will help illustrate this a little bit better. There's a screen behind you, so I
We're just
apologize.
staring at you.
All right.
We're looking right past you, Dave.
Yeah, I'm used to that, so. Okay. Let's see here. Next slide, Aaron, if you would, please. Okay, this picture right here, it shows us exactly what's in the ground right now. These lines, if you can see, that's a vision test, but I know the color, so I can help you out with that. The red is a 4-inch water main and State Street. This portion that we're talking about is between Center Street and Superior. You'll notice that there's actually a few spots of red around there. Red are the 4-inch water mains. Orange are the 6-inch mains. There is a purple one down along Center Street. That illustrates the 16-inch transmission line for Gala, which is City of Alma owned asset. That portion of it is. You'll also see some 8-inch along Superior Street, that green on Superior between State, going eastward to Pine, that is a 10-inch. But to illustrate that, you can see where there's not a great deal of large-sized water mains. And when you look at State Street being in the center of downtown, and what I'm trying to do in the future here is along State, just north of Superior, there's a 12-inch line that eventually we will connect to. You can see where that 12-inch picks up on West Downey, and then State Street from Downey north is a 12-inch. So eventually, we'd like to connect that 16-inch water main on Center Street up to East Superior and connect to that 12-inch. So we actually have a connection there between the 12-inch and the 16 to help additional flows downtown. A couple different scenarios we looked at for this project. As you mentioned, Mr. Smith last fall was looking at doing the hotel project downtown, and the fire flows didn't work out. So what they were looking at in the middle of winter, early spring, was a few different options. If I had a laser pointer, but I'm going to show you on this one. There were two options they looked at. You can run a water main from Prospect over to this. Problem with that is, it would not be a public main, it would be a private main, so it would only serve the functions of that, that new hotel. Another option would be to run a water main up this alley. The problem is, there's no room in that alley. There's a sanitary right now, and there's a storm line. Eagle requirements is you have to be 10 feet from each. It's only a 16-foot wide alley, so there's not enough room to put a water main in on there. So the next option, because they were looking at putting a private line off of Prospect Street, you can only get a 6-inch off of that because that's what Prospect has, is 6. You can't go a bigger line than what you can have feeding it. They were looking at running a 6-inch down State Street just for the purposes of function, to serve the fire suppression system on that hotel. That would work for their intended purposes, but if you run that down the street, that, many of you might know, I know I gave Matt an impromptu education there a couple of years ago. Most of downtown underground, there's a lot of stuff, and it's very hard to miss them. So if you put in a 6-inch line that only feeds that hotel, it's very difficult, because we've got a sanitary down the center of the street, you've got to stay 10 feet away from it both sides. That starts to shorten the right-of-ways. There's also that existing 4-inch on the east side. You have to keep that in service the whole time that you're running you're running a new water main. You have to keep the old one live until the new one can pass. So that 6-inch, if it only serves the Opera House, that takes up a portion of the right-of-way that only serves one function. So I talked to the developer and their contractors about the idea of perhaps the city could put in extra money to increase that from a 6-inch to a 12-inch for the purposes that I've described. So that the city gets function out of this, and if there is a main down the right-of-way, that it is a public main, and eventually we can connect this thing. So this right now, what you're looking at, you see the new blue line that we put right there on the west side of State Street. That is what we're proposing right now. The dash line is a future expansion of that. Right now, you can see we go just a little bit past halfway to try to serve the building just to the north because we're that close to it. And I thought if there's anything done with that one, that will serve that function. The building just to the north of that can connect off of Superior Street, that 8-inch, when you look at the parcel map layout. And on the east side, we've been tracking down those water services. The only water service that we don't know where it connects to is the old drop tine building. That one, we have to figure out where that water line actually connects. My assumption is it comes off of State Street. The rest of those come off of Superior Street. They come off that 10-inch, then the one on the southwest block of Superior in State, that one connects to that 8-inch on Superior. So, right now, it is a way to try to save money on this project. There's a couple reasons why we're looking at this. Number one, like I talked about last week, this came right out of the blue. It was, we need water, what do we do? So we talked about allocating those funds from that Center Street project to this one. Can't do that without the commission's approval. So that's kind of where we've talked about this. And then we've had some funds come along through the county through this, like the letters are escaping. ARPA money, I'm sorry. The ARPA money came along. So instead of using city funds, we're looking at trying to leverage money for those ARPA funds through the county so that we actually don't lose the money that we've allocated for the Center Street water main. Now, because at the time when we talked about it in the spring, we didn't have the funds, and I thought, yeah, for about as close as we can do the Center Street project, that will get us halfway. That's that's one of the reasons why we stopped just a little over halfway on State Street is why this proposal, because of funds. This was not something that was even budgeted for. Number two is, before we go all the way to Superior Street, that's quite an undertaking. It's a lot more complicated. You're getting out of the MDOT right-of-way. There's going to be significant costs that are attributed to that. And because of the amount of money that we had, whoops, if I don't hit that, and trying to make it work with the funds that we already had allocated, if I could push that Center Street project off another year or two, then this would get this one done because this was the immediate need, because they do have to have the fire flow for it. Like I said, understanding eventually we will go to Superior Street. Can you go to the next slide, Aaron? This is gonna zoom up and show you a little bit better what I'm talking about. This is exactly what we're looking at doing. That's 274 feet of 12-inch water main. Stopping just shy, we'll put a hydrant on the end of it, and then to keep flow going through that 12-inch, we're gonna connect to that 4-inch on the east to keep that live and keep water flowing through there, because I don't wanna have a dead-end 12-inch main there. That creates problems. So this is what we're proposing right now to use the ARPA money for. We're asking for $226,000 from Gratiot County to allocate towards this. Keeping the money and the request as low as possible to just get this project done. If we ask for more, we're probably looking at about $550,000 to $600,000 if we extend this all the way up to Superior Street. If we extend it right now at this point in the game, the contractors have told me they're looking to have that building open in February. If we extend that water main, the drawings we have to add new drawings to it. That's gonna be another month out in design. Then we're gonna be out another 2 months just in Eagle permitting for it. So that pushes us back about 3 months. So that doesn't work with the timeline for turnkey construction. If we do this in 2 phases, immediately we don't save anything. So it's not like if we push it back and do one segment, to come back in the spring and do the next segment, that would be cost prohibitive as well. Going back to the $226,000, if that's money we can leverage from Gratiot County, if they will allocate those funds, it's $226,000 that we're gonna ask for this. It serves a public good. It does get us water downtown. Number two is it also hopefully might keep us in play for more funding later on down the road. We've talked about the properties east of town, talked about maybe leveraging that towards lift stations. So trying to keep the request for money down as low as we can, strictly only where we need it, and not asking for more, just to try to go all the way to Superior Street, which yes, it is a need, but it's not an immediate need right now. Typically, when we do new segments like this, we will stub them off, and this has a T on it for explicit purposes. When we connect to it, we can pull the plug off and go right north with it and finish this and interconnect up to Superior Street. This also makes it a little easier because if we connect and go all the way to go up to Superior Street. Show the next slide. See this dotted line, we're going to 45 it, go over here and interconnect. See what we have to cross? A live 6-inch, excuse me. So that's going to be difficult to do that all at once. This makes it easier. We can tie things off of that 4-inch, and that gives us some leverage, so then when we do connect that, we can kill that 6-inch, and it makes life a little easier crossing right up there at Superior Street eventually. So we are looking at putting in a connection, a 2-inch connection to Commercial Bank right now, because I understand they had some water issues with that portion, so we're looking at putting one in right now, just a part of this project. So really, that's the reasons why we're asking for it. It came up out of the blue, looking at trying to make everything work with the time frame that we have. We do have a contractor out of the 4 that bids were sent out to. We do have one that can start literally within a week, so we can try to get this still wrapped up before winter time, and still keep that hotel project moving forward. But we need the city commission's approval before we can go to the county commission and ask for the $226,000 to complete this project. So if that works out, then we won't have to even look at using any city funds for this. Or if we do, they'll be limited. Any questions?
Yes, I have a couple questions. So this serves the east and the west side of the street, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you said on the north,
The potential to serve the east and
yeah,
west.
the northeast corner, I believe it was, I can't remember the name of the business in there now, but
Yep.
that is served by the 8-inch on Superior, correct?
Yes.
And then, so essentially, you're only talking about 2 extra buildings, which would be the eye doctor building are the only 2. Why not carry it the extra 30 feet and still cap it so you don't have to cross those lines and then not service those 2 buildings? Now every building on that street essentially been serviced.
Potentially, yes. You could do that for a short temporary thing, and we could look at adding a few feet of that, but I don't want to add too much because of the eagle permitting, but that's something I can look into.
Okay. That'd be interesting, I'd be interested to see.
Because
what
right now I'm
the
permitted to
difference
run the
is there.
274 feet
Okay.
for that. But that's something I can.
Because I know both those buildings are in the process of being renovated as
Yep.
well, so.
And I would look at, quite honestly, within the next, and it's up to the commission really, if, I would go probably no more than 5 years without doing that extension up there for the simple fact that it would be a nice connection to go to the 12-inch. We all knew that going into it. To connect that 16 at the south to the 12-inch at the north does nothing but help everything. And it helps with our fire flows, it helps with building rate flows, things of that nature. But getting to Superior Street, that's a couple-month project just to get permitted to go out into Superior Street to open that up. Plus, with crossing that existing water line, there's some complications in that. Plus, you've got the decorative concrete to put back. I do not want to try to even get a contractor to put that back at this time of year, especially with how far we are in the 8 ball, or behind the 8 ball, excuse me. But
So you're not talking about abandoning any of that existing line? That's all gonna stay in place?
not
stay
that,
active?
not that 4-inch right now. Once, I wouldn't abandon it until I totally have that 12-inch connected, then I would abandon that 4-inch. A good point you bring up too, Greg. When you interconnect, that's another part, because just simply extending this at this late in the game, we like to do a lot of planning. You can ask anybody that's not internally. We try to vet out any potential problems before they come up. See that orange line at the very top of the page? That's a 6-inch line. We've got 2 water mains down State Street right now. When we interconnect that, we're gonna kill that 4-inch, and I wanna kill that 6-inch, because I wanna tie everybody over to 12, so that makes that complicated. So we're gonna be putting some cuts into State Street north of Superior as well. So that's gonna be a part of that project when we go from the north half up, to abandon that 4, that red line, and abandon that 6 line. Because any redundant lines that we have, they're just potentials for breaks, leaks, and problems, so.
Is there a reason you didn't just replace that line on the east side, the old line, with the new line? Instead of going,
I'm sorry, are you talking on this side?
because yeah, you've got that existing line going, and then why are we digging on the other side of the road? Why
Oh.
don't we just replace that section of it
Because,
that's existing?
yes, the reason for it is you have to keep people alive and keep them in the business of getting water while we're constructing a new one. Anytime on a brand new construction project, that's what we'll do. Put a new main on the opposite side of the street. Tony, you might remember this, we did when you lived on State Street, if you remember how we do that. Put in a water main, you'd have to have at least, in a perfect world, you'd have more than 5 feet of separation, because you don't want to dig close to that, because if it's under pressure and that 4 inches live, it blows apart. That's dangerous, it'll kill somebody, it fills the hole up with water. Once we get the new line buried in the ground, get it tested, it's got to pass a pressure test and has to pass 2 consecutive back T tests before it can be a part of the system. That can take anywhere from 4 days to weeks, depending on how long it takes for that water to pass. If you dig up that 4-inch, no one has water. If you're just ripping it up and placing it as you go, they wouldn't have water in the meantime. So we put a new line, get it live and tested, then tie over to the new, then kill the old line. That's why that 4-inch you see is still there.
Appreciate you not killing it.
Well, that's terms, abandoning if I don't hit everything here in the process. But
Preliminarily too. Okay, thanks. We have had the discussion with the county. I see that John Lemons here, but I said we'll already lobby him on behalf of the city. We have had those talks to get that on their agenda next Tuesday, correct, Jim? If we could get that over there at that point in time.
And the 230,000,
it's 226,000.
26,000, is that the project? Is the developer contributing anything to this?
That's what the actual cost is, that's what their bid prices are, that's where that number comes from. Where that was the lowest bid cost is 226,000, that's why we're asking for that. As far as the developer, I don't know what their portion is, I'm not a part of that agreement.
Because the initial, when you were initially talking, I mean, they were gonna do it themselves, one way or the other.
Yes,
And we talked about leveraging our dollars against theirs.
Yes.
Now it's just, we're asking the county to.
yes, so we don't have to pull out of our coffers for our funds for Center Street to put that in, that's correct. And with the idea that it is a public main and it will not be a
Would
private.
the project have better chance going to the county if we were going with some sort of leverage deal?
I couldn't speak to that, I don't know the requirements of the ARPA money, I can defer that to Matt. From what I understand, no, because it's a public project, I don't see how the private funding of it would go based on what I understand of the ARPA funds, but I'll let Matt explain that a little better.
it does have to be public funding in order to use that, and it would be, so the decision comes from really in talking with them. It's our first introduction into utilizing the county's money also for that. I think that it actually opened up more discussion about what we talked about on the east side of it, where do we go.
Well, presumably, I mean, the county has this pot of money.
Yeah.
Presumably, a portion of it is going to be allocated to Elma, St. Louis, Ithaca, and, you know, the list goes on. So the more we can leverage any dollars we ask for, the more we can do ourselves other places or.
That's why I'd like to
other
keep
projects,
this
so.
fund to the, yeah, for the absolute minimum, because for those other projects, at least then we're not asking for more than what we need to get this going.
So is there any intention to ask the developer to do any participation in this?
Something we can look towards.
He will be paying his portion to do all the private side of things.
Well, yeah.
If you, yeah,
I would expect.
yeah.
that
No,
at the very
what I'm
least, yeah.
saying is that if you wanted to look at from a standpoint of investment from the private side of things, then you probably should look at a special assessment for everyone along that, because they'll all be using that one day. So we should special assess, to be fair, anybody that's along that line, you know, not just one in particular person, because they'll all be using that as a benefit eventually, because eventually they'll abandon off that 4-inch on the east side, obviously, and then tap into the 12-inch on
Do
the
we
west side.
typically special assess for water mains?
I mean, you can, I mean, that's.
I mean, our practice, has it done to do that?
No, we haven't done that, no. And that's, I mean, from a fairness standpoint, that's how I could see, it's like when if you, typically, we obviously all pay a tap-in fee for anything new. We tap in, everyone pays a fee, and that helps put money back into the water fund and sort of things. If you were to, if someone privately put it there, or say put in, say, just even money, just 50%, then everybody else got a benefit out of that, then it's not really fair to the one person that put all that money into it, unless you can somehow offset that and pay them back for that initial investment, because they're not the only one gaining benefit off of that. And that's when it goes back to that private-public water main stuff, so.
Which I understand and completely agree with, but I think if that's the case, then the other two buildings should be included in that. Because if you're saying it's gonna be paid for by the city, then I think then you're gonna get essentially two businesses that are not benefiting for up to 5 years, best case scenario, from that main.
Or when they need it. I mean, obviously, people avoid putting in suppression if they don't have to, because it's expensive, it's maintenance driven, it's all these other things that come along with it. You know, unless you needed it, then, yeah, but if we can push it up further, that'd be great. But it's like Dave said, there's so much money, so much time at this moment. It'd be great to go, there's so many water needs down there, not, you know, and then on top of that, they look at stormwater needs. Stormwater needs all the time down there that are an issue. It's just trying to fix some things as we can, if we can get some help to do them publicly, so they are truly public assets. That's-
One thing I'd interject, if, at least one thing to consider before, because if you go with a special assessment route, then everybody's gonna wanna have water connected to it right off the bat, at least I would. If I'm gonna have to pay for it, I would wanna have a lateral across to get water service. One thing I looked at for when we do that north section, obviously we're gonna kill this 4-inch, we're gonna tie everybody over to this new 12, wherever it's at. You guys know how construction works, we're gonna have Swiss cheese all over that, you're gonna have joints and cuts all over Superior. By the time you're done with that, you're gonna have speed bump heaven. Well, if we run that water main to the north, like what I'm proposing anyway, run that to the north, interconnect it, then we tie everybody over to the new 12, abandon the 4. And while we have Swiss cheese in there, we've got that road all cut apart, we do what's called a mill and fill, mill that surface and put a brand new road surface over that entire section of street as a part of that 12-inch going to the north. That's why it's nice to have some time to plan and things like that. That's why that gives us some more options for doing that 12-inch to the north. You connect, give everybody whatever size water they need. I know there's a few of them down there that probably do need a 2-inch service line. A number of them might be 1-inch, but that's something to look into, especially if we know of any future developments. That's where it's nice to have these conversations with developers. If you know there's any consideration for fire suppression lines, we can stub 6-inch lines out for them, keeps them out of the road. So at least right now, before we went down that special assessment route, if we do that, that south half of the road is gonna be a lot of speed bumps in it. I guess what I would consider is use this county leverage money to do this. When we go to the north, then do a mill and fill afterwards. Don't get that. tie everybody over to this new 12, then put a new road surface on that portion of State Street.
Any other questions?
Just looking for motion tonight.
Yes.
Is there any way we can get numbers on those other, including those other two buildings before we make a decision?
Numbers as far as what? I'm sorry.
What the extra cost would be just to include those other two businesses?
To tie.
Instead of
them-
going all the way back to Superior, just include a little bit, like we talked about, obviously you have a set distance you have to stay within, but if we could get at least one more or two more of
If
those
I could put
businesses.
in 2 more chunks of water main, those are about 16 feet apiece. Looking at probably about $5,000 to $8,000, I'm guessing, to go that extra footage right now. Probably 10,000 I would err on, but I think that's something we can look at doing.
And we haven't made that formal proposal to the county yet. so it
Correct.
could be done.
That was one of the things we talked about is,
So could we make a motion to check into that? Is that part of our?
what I would
I said
consider
up
for
to
this,
236.
We go, ask for up
I'd say
to
it's up
whatever.
to 236.
yes.
Yeah.
What I would look at, Eric and I were talking about this, ask for 226,000 and 20% of that price for contingency funds. So maybe what I would look at doing, contingencies in case there's any ancillary costs that come up that we can leverage against. Barring that the county would approve that, but that's what I would ask for.
Anybody care to make a motion?
So what, make a motion, we ask them for what exactly?
226 plus 20% contingency, up to,
Up to 20%, 226.
Plus 20.
20. It'd be 246. No, you get better than that.
I'll support it.
okay, more support, comments, questions?
Can we make it a part of that, that if that contingency is not used, then we could look to use that to extend that to those two buildings? If it's within that cost, sorry.
I think there may be
That's-
some questions whether or not the state will allow. based on
If
the
it's
permits
allowable,
already
yeah, if
done.
it's allowable.
That's what we've already asked for.
Yeah, I can't say that, but I can tell you strongly that's something we can look into.
Okay.
I cannot give you a guarantee on that right now, but I can look into it.
Sounds like it makes sense with those two businesses being abandoned right now, or, you know, not in use right now.
They're
anyhow.
both being renovated right now.
Being renovated,
They're
yeah.
both being renovated.
But it all
yep.
has to do with what the Eagle or.
Used to be DEQ, now they go by Eagle, and yes,
Remember
that's how
what-
much we're permitted to
that
do.
is how many feet, and that's what it stays.
Goodbye.
Okay, so we have a motion and support on the floor. One last chance for questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Motion's carried, thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, now we can move down to new business. I'd like to appoint an additional member to the Human Resources Committee and request that that committee review the city of Elma processes regarding hiring and promotions. And this time I'd like to appoint Danny Wernick to add to that committee to give him a third commission member. So, and motion support, comments or questions? Before Danny says no, everybody say yes. Yes, come on.
Yes.
You guys are giving him a chance here.
Yes,
He's
yes,
ready
yes.
to
Was
do
that the
this,
official?
Anybody opposed say no? Okay, Danny, congratulations and thank you. I
Thank
know
you.
that You already
Yep.
agreed to this, so.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate it. Next up is discussion about public safety and the public health payroll reimbursement program.
I would take that.
Okay, Matt?
And you know, we've been discussing since, we've been July of 2020, which would have been last year, of the Applied for Public Safety and Public Health Payroll Reimbursement Grant Program through Treasury. Initially, that was due to be a much larger grant, and we eventually ended up with all of the applications throughout the state of Michigan. But we received $139,000 in funds that we applied for. And that's about 66% of the total that was initially asked for. And that really was the month of April and May 2020, police, fire, salary, and benefits is what was done. As we've talked about many times through this, there's been an awful lot of questions as to how this grant's to be administered and to come out. It's called the Public Safety, Public Health Reimbursement Grant, which I think gives an awful lot of automatic thought to what it's supposed to be reimbursed for. Some have interpreted that the money's to be paid out directly to public safety employees as hazard pay. And to be frank, that's where we started this whole discussion as a group, as myself presented to you, and then as us all talking about. Others believe the intent was to reimburse the city for any expenses that were incurred due to COVID during that period of time. At the time of the grant application, if you remember back, it was really believed, and actually our state revenue sharing had been significantly cut. We did not receive what we thought we were gonna get. And obviously, one of our primary general fund expenses is public safety. Eventually, that was restored and did come back, and so those amounts were there, so there was no significant loss of revenue to cover for that. As we went along, I asked Finance Director Curtis Dancer to take a look into this. To be honest, at that point, we're still having discussions back and forth about what ways can we get this back out to public safety. We kept looking, kept running into blocks as to what it was. After Curtis did some extensive research on this topic and reviewing the application itself, looking at the FAQs from the Department of Treasury, talking to someone in Treasury, talking to a whole bunch of folks, finance directors about those that have used it, how they used it. And really based on all that, he comes to the conclusion, which is really, it's your money, commission, to decide how we're to actually go ahead and spend it. And once that money was put back into the general fund, which is then fulfills the grant obligation that has been reimbursed to the city of Elma into the general fund. Then at that point in time, that grant is closed out and the money is now available to be spent at the discretion of the commission. What I've done here is given you a table for you to look at, and by no means am I telling you this is the only option. I'm telling you based on all the discussions that we have had in the past about the importance of this being a hazard pay that comes back, for public safety. This is one way to look at this. What we did was we took a look at looking at staff that was here in July of 2020 when this was actually applied for, and then is still here today, that they would be there. And this looks at, if we look at the police amount on there for the hazard pay, that's really taking the total amount of salaries that were for the police in April and May of 2020. And then number is 14 that we've used as far as those folks that would be both there in July of 2020 and still employed here now. Same with fire, it's taking the actual salaries of what those two were at that point in time to get to that. The other then becomes those benefit pays that were out there. All of the things that went into benefits that we were also allowed to apply for in the grant. And it breaks it down a little bit more by employees in DPW, water, wastewater, assessing, engineering, library, finance, and admin, of giving then something to everyone who actually worked through this process during that time. Now, I will tell you, to keep in mind, full disclosure, we also know that we made a lot of concessions at that time, and we worked as hard as we could, I think, to keep our staff all healthy, that we had certain departments that worked a week on, week off in order to stay healthy, to split people up. We went through it. Also with the, well, we closed this building, so a lot of folks weren't working in this building. We leveraged another grant, which was actually money to work from home, that we did a lot of that with. And so this is just this is my recommendation to look at those numbers that says, I think this is fair to everybody involved. It also looks at the police, obviously substantially more, which you're looking at in hazard pay. But obviously, the police are out there every single day exposed. Their exposure is much, much higher than those of us who worked in an office, a closed office, or those of us who didn't work during a period of time. So the actual reality as we look through all of this is, I guess the thing is just to make it clear that this really is your option. If you've seen some of the things on the news, I think this is a lot of the discussion you've been hearing, is that people, it's coming back to commissions, it's coming back to people. There's been some strange decisions out there that I think have caused some folks some consternation and some problems in other areas. I say this is a good starting point for you to look at. You are actually under, I'm saying there's no obligation, but I think that we have discussed this many, many times over the last year, and the intent was there. So I by no means am taking any of your discretion away from you by putting a table together that has this. I'm saying this is the starting point where you're able to look at. The reason for the differences, again, the police is about pay. It's about exactly what their pay was during that time period. Fire, same thing, because it came directly out of that. The others are tiered only because different departments had different access to working with the public on a daily basis. I mean, directly with the public, not as far as, did you happen to see, or those of us that were here inside. And I did include some of the administrators here that I also know were working every day during that time. So. And I by no means say, obviously, you're gonna look at this tonight and go, oh, there, let's make a motion or make a decision. That's up to you as to how you want to discuss this as we go through the rest part of the process.
The way that I was looking at it, I'm actually kind of excited that this has come to the commission, because I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to, look at this and to be able to honor true public safety with our law enforcement officers and the fire that were out there during the pandemic, literally being exposed with bodily fluids and everything else that was going on at that time when they were making arrests. I think there's a difference, in my opinion, between essential employees and what this is public safety and public health employees. I also read the frequently asked questions, and I don't understand some of this, because in the frequently asked questions, it's really clearly states eligible public safety and public health expenses are to go to, it's question 4, number 1, law enforcement officers, fire, rescue squad, and ambulance crew. And then question 4, number 14 says, can Department of Public Works? No. Admin? No. So I'm confused. To me, it seems very cut and dry, so I guess I don't.
I'm right there with you, the cut and dry portion, because that's what we went through. The difference being, and Curtis, jump in when you feel that it comes,
Well,
this one's different because when it comes back to the city, then it's open to that interpretation.
You are not actually, so the grant itself is not paying this hazard. The grant is for reimbursement for the city, and it's just based on public health and public safety salaries.
But did we make that commitment to those folks in this process?
Oh, I think so. I don't think there's any
Okay,
doubt.
so just because we have latitude, my concern would be, or maybe a little following up with Rogers, if we made a particular commitment already, I'm not sure I want to. That would be my sense. If we-
That would be the purpose for bringing it back, and again, this is a table that we just put together for an overall. That's entirely your opinion.
I think, Roger, we were in a meeting where we discussed that the public works, like you had stated, was 1 week on, 1 week off. Then they come down to 32 hours so that they got the unemployment. So the other factors besides the police and fire have already received
A benefit.
a benefit, a hazardous pay from the unemployment.
Yep.
And so, I agree, with Audra, and Nick, and, I was excited to see this on because, I talked to, or Curtis has answered my questions 3 or 4 times, and, I've asked other people. I thought this was gonna be done by, the end of budget at June. Then I asked in, I believe, August again, and then I was hoping to get it done before the, end of this quarter also. So I would personally suggest that we make a decision tonight.
Well, and it seems like, and I don't know all the ins and outs, but it seems similar to when we had some funds with the library, that while it may be legal, that it's in an open pot to put funds somewhere else, like Nick was saying, that if we, and Audra and Michelle, if we've made a promise that we're, gave our word, or however you want to phrase it, that we were going to use this money for this particular thing, even if legally we can, it's amorphous, I don't know that we want to
Just because we have
start
the
that.
latitude, that doesn't mean
Right,
we
I'm
should
not
do
sure
that.
we
And,
want to.
I was an essential worker at the bank.
Yeah, me
I
too.
would stay in the office with a mask on. Kudos to all of you. Kudos.
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 Just wait
Some
till
good
I-
noodles, that's a small.
See, I get nervous because I would not want to be in their shoes and going out and facing what they do on a daily basis, let alone during COVID when we didn't know what was going on and you didn't know what you were walking into. So I say if we have the funds, and yeah, thank you for doing what you did.
And so, these are over and above, folks. These are, the 139,000 is over and above. This is not a budgeted amount. This is-
No,
this is-
right,
This
right.
is over and
Yeah.
above, so whatever you choose to do with that
Yeah.
is you have the discretion to do that.
So can we go back to what was the original formula that,
There is an actual breakout directly that would be
what we
for
originally
police and
had
fire.
said that would go to the police and fire? Can we go back to, do we have that somewhere? I know
I can
it's.
get that, it's
I have it right here.
six,
I don't
yeah.
have it with me.
86, I've got it right and everything, but we could do it based on, then it's just based on strictly
says
the
the
139,000 divided by the amount of
original
police
act-
officers and the amount of firefighters.
Yep, I had originally requested 227, 336, 56 from the treasury for the
Yep.
long term. The original ask broke down as of 83% for police officers, which is 190,937, and 17% for firefighters, so
So it'd be 83 and 17% of the 139 we actually have.
the 139, okay.
Mhm.
So the 139, so, that'd be 82,000, 8,200 and
We work in
1,200
bank.
basically.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah, 82
late.
and,
We do
82 and
conversion.
1,200, yeah.
82 for the police and 1,200 for the fire.
I agree with that as well. I'm looking at this as hazard pay premiums. Everybody, you know, we all had tough times on it, you know. I was on a school bus with kids who wouldn't wear masks and all that kind of thing too, but I was not doing what these guys were doing out there in talking to some of them and in talking to Matt and other people here. These guys would go on a call, and after a call, if they came in contact with anybody, they would have to come in here, shower, change clothes, completely disinfect, have one person in a police car instead of two. The danger was.
And don't even get me started on the shower they were using. I did that before the renovation, that's disgusting. I saw it, it was
Not taking
disgusting.
money for the show.
Yeah,
They
I
already
agree.
fixed the shower, they already fixed the shower.
We all took some risks in this, certainly, but the hazardous pay goes to police and fire, as far as I'm concerned.
That was the promise of this
Mhm.
program to begin with.
Right.
So I think that's appropriate that we honor the initial intent of what we said we were gonna do, and what they were told was gonna happen with us. I
Mhm.
think it's very appropriate.
So may I make a motion that we pay the,
That's for the
Just gotta look at that one.
hold on, he's hold.
82,
Yeah. That I make the motion that we do the original breakdown of 83% for the police officers and 17 for the firefighters. And we thank all the other essential workers, but this fund, I recommend to the police and fire.
support.
Motion support, additional comments or questions?
Am I allowed to say something real quick, or just get a clarification real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
Is this net of the payroll, or net of payroll costs, or gross of payroll costs? I just want to make sure when I put the budget amendment.
Of the employer portion of payroll costs, you mean?
Yes, the employer portion. I don't care, I just want to make sure. when I-
No, I've got it. I think there was 139,052.14 put in.
Yeah.
But is that, were you gonna net out our payroll
Like, 'cause
costs?
otherwise it'll cost
Like
the
our
city
FICA
more
and
than
our-
139 if we do the 139. And I don't care, I'm just making clarification of what are we doing so when I do the budget amendment. I
What
do
did we
it
say we would
From
I
there.
don't-
We've only used the
I
round
don't know if-
numbers. We had looked into one point when we thought this was where it was gonna go as to how we would break that out. to see the cost was.
What is payroll, 7.5%?
Using the percentage from the last request of 82% for police and 17.5.
No, that was the breakdown.
But the question is, are we going to deduct our payroll costs, our payroll contributions, our FICA and Medicaid, Medicare?
It'll just be a one-time.
I would say
Could be one.
no.
This is a one-time, this doesn't go in their base.
But you still have to pay taxes on it. Payroll,
Payroll
either
still
way,
has to pay
we have
taxes.
payroll taxes, the city will, I mean, either we pay it out of this fund or we just pay it out of our general fund. Whatever your pleasure is. It's got,
Well, yeah, it has to
the
be-
government has to be paid.
Yeah, the government.
Yeah, we're gonna pay the
We'll be in a
government when we're in
whole
it.
bunch of different trouble with
If you wanna make a net of the payroll of our portion, of the employer portion of payroll taxes, or if you wanna make it, give them the whole amount and we'll cover the payroll taxes out of general fund. So it's up to you that made the motion to determine that.
I don't know if I wanna make that decision. I need some guidance
You
on that
wanna take a
one.
poll of police officers?
I would suggest, since we came out better than we anticipated through the whole COVID thing, the budget, you know, we looked at a almost 20% discounted rate when we redid the budget because of the terrible things that could have happened to us with real estate taxes going down. That really did not happen to us. We were in pretty good shape because most of those we discovered are done through escrow and stuff, so we really didn't suffer the terrible consequences we were afraid to do that. So I say, let general fund take the hit on the FICA and taxes,
Well,
yeah.
we just saved $900 and some on that other.
Yeah.
9,000.
9,000, yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you've got that?
So the
So we'll
motion,
keep it right.
motion
My
and
motion
motion
is
is-
to have the,
the gross amount is what we're paying out, and then we're gonna, cover the payroll portion. Okay.
that's what I.
Everybody clear on that? And that
Yes.
support was for that motion as well, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Any additional questions or comments? Hey, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Any opposed say no? I'd like to stay, please. So the motion's passed, thank you very much. And thank you to our police and fire.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And ladies, I'm sorry. Sorry, Kendra.
Mark, please thank your fire department for us also.
We'll do, we'll see him after the meeting. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Okay, appropriations. Who's in favor of paying the bills?
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Are there any comments or questions about any of the bills? Nothing exciting. Hey, hearing none, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Motion's carried, the bills are paid. Thank you. Commissioner comments. Roxanne, would you like to go first tonight?
I'm just tired, no.
Moving on to Danny then.
No
Mr.
comment
Rivers.
tonight.
Nothing, okay. Roger.
Yes, on a completely different matter, I wanted to bring up and figure out how we want to discuss it, or if we want to talk about it, or whatever. We have completely, I think, at this point in time, rewired, or whatever is proper to say, the city for the broadband. And they are currently in the process of hooking up homes to it. I was under the impression, when this first started, that the idea of it was to put in good quality, high-speed, and affordable broadband. I checked out, I went to their website to see how much this was gonna cost through, what's the name of the company? Point Broadband. I went to their website and discovered that their cheapest installation is $59 a month, and I think that's for 200 up and 200 down. It goes all the way up to $89 a month for a gig up and a gig down, plus $12 a month if you want Wi-Fi with that. That comes to $71 a month, and I am not sure that $71 a month is truly affordable to people who have kids that are trying to get on the internet in school to learn when we go through a year like we have in the past. I looked up what does it cost for the basic necessities. There's a group called ALICE, which is Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. There's an acronym for you. Asset Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. That puts household budgets for people who are in this. This is above the poverty line. But for a single adult or a senior adult or two adults and one infant or a preschooler, at $23,000 for a single adult, $26,000 for a senior adult, and $64,000 for two adults with one infant and one preschooler. This is not the poverty limit. This is above the poverty limit. This is asset limited, income constrained. And that budget's about $55 a month for technology. Now, I'm assuming that that's paying for your cell phones and TV and everything else. So I'm just kind of concerned that $70 a month for high-speed broadband is not really affordable for most people. And I don't know whether they promised us that or whatever, but I think we should discuss it to see if there is something that we should maybe do about that.
I have a contact, because I have the internet first,
Mhm.
so I can give you his email address and maybe we can.
Well, was there an arrangement made with the city that it was going to
This is a
be
private
affordable or
business.
anything?
This is
No.
a private business that
Mhm.
came in, and you're looking at a completely different type of internet.
Right,
with
I'm
the-
aware, yeah,
with the-
I'm aware of that.
with the
It's-
base, and so I think they talked about being competitive with Charter and different places like that,
Mhm.
but would be providing a hardwired
Mhm.
as opposed to the other. And I think that's what they did. We have no, we can't set any of those things for them to begin with.
They're not
We can't,
regulated
they're not a
utility.
regulated, yeah,
Okay,
they come in
okay.
and can do their thing. And I would say, I don't believe they've oversold anything. They are putting in what they said they would at a price that's probably, hopefully competitive.
And it would be, and
Yeah,
it
I
would
think
be.
that's.
They're at
it was more about
89
what
for
they
their
were putting in
package.
As
and-
opposed to
Okay.
how much in that
Okay, okay.
And the other thing you have to remember now, prior to this, we had charter, you had a cable coming to your house. We now have two options. Hopefully that will eventually
Mhm.
drive.
One of them.
One of
One
them
of them,
to
okay.
offer something. a little
I may
better.
have been, I may have misunderstood what I thought.
I think it's their term of affordable.
Yeah.
It was their term saying affordable.
Yeah,
It was
maybe.
affordable
Maybe.
Well, on a national
And to
scale.
some it is.
On a national
On
scale,
a national
it is.
scale, $80 is probably not a bad price for internet.
No, it probably
I
isn't.
mean,
especially
I
for
can't
lawyers.
afford it.
most
but-
of us pay that for this already.
You betcha,
so,
you betcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you're right, Roger, poor people
Yeah.
like me
That-
can't afford it.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
No,
which
and
is
I'm
why,
thinking of
I
the-
mean, if you look at the library, we've got those hotspots and we've got internet access
Trying to use all
available.
A
those.
lot of people use those
I think-
hotspots. Your parking lot is full.
I think that's
Not
why,
full,
we're-
but-
I think that's why we're offering so much and see so much activity at the library, using that service. So that's our kind of our contribution to helping
Okay.
people out there.
Well, maybe we can look at some other ways to help people get around that, because I would like to see, you know, if we have another pandemic and all the kids go back to homeschooling and nobody can do it, because you can't get anything to, you know, this would certainly be, it's there, and if it's 200 or 300 up and 300 down, and you can put up to 10 instruments on a, you know, on a package, that's fine. But I don't know about $80 a month, so.
Yeah. Technology's expensive.
Yes, it
I
is.
mean,
Yes, it is.
You know,
Yeah.
a couple grand for a laptop isn't really affordable either.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Okay,
Tough to
said
do.
my piece.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Audra?
Roger set me right up. Alice households are households that are one paycheck from being above the poverty line. We have many of them in this community. Child Advocacy is hosting a lunch and learn next Thursday the 7th. Is that next Thursday? October 7th at 11:30, virtual, so if you want to jump on. And it is the United Way Director, Annie Sanders, will be talking about Alice, which is living right above that poverty line, and what that looks like in Gratiot and Isabella counties. So it's going to be a good one. I think people are not aware, you know, they know we have kind of middle class, and then they think we have people living in poverty, but there are a lot of families that are Alice households that are working poor, is what we'll call, you know, they work for paychecks and they're just right there at that line. So it's going to be a great lunch and learn. You can go to our Child Advocacy Facebook page and register right there if you're interested. And then I just want to thank Elma PD and fire and consumers. We had a transformer blow at 4 a.m. Right across the street. Scared the hell out of
Some
me.
people slept right
Oh
through
my
it.
God, it gave me a heart attack. I thought the bombs were coming and dropping on the house. And it was a crazy fire and sparks, and it sounded like the 4th of July. And they kept us safe and got the power back on pretty quickly. So appreciate that. I'm sorry you slept through it, Nick. It was quite the excitement.
I'm actually on my way
It was terrifying.
Michelle?
Happy retirement, Matt.
Yeah,
Enjoy Disney a couple more times a year.
I think it's gonna move down
Then
there.
I
there's,
know, he's like Florida. So,
Thank you.
yep.
then there is that, from all of us, I think, man. So thank you. We're gonna miss
Anything
you.
else? Sarah?
Oh, I have something this time.
All right.
Oh my goodness, Sarah's got something this time.
I wrote it down. Oh, wow.
Sarah.
So I was up at 3 o'clock this morning. I composed this incredible, amazing speech, and it was well worded and it was well thought out, and it was going to be amazing. And I stole all of Matt's virtues and all this wonderful stuff, and then I went back to sleep and I forgot all of it. And so basically, you're getting the Reader's Digest version today because I couldn't remember all of it. And yeah, I know you'll thank me for not going the whole road. So here it is, and forgive me because I get super nervous in front of people. So basically, I just want to start by saying this is going to be kind of a bittersweet week for all of us. We are all super excited for Matt because he's retiring, he gets to go do fun stuff, but we're losing him. Bottom line. So he has told me many times that he doesn't want a retirement party because he did the retirement thing when he left the police, and he doesn't get to do it again. But I didn't want to let him leave without recognizing the service that he's done here. And so when Matt took over as city manager, things were a little rough here, just a little rough. And or as Curtis said, we were at the bottom of a roller coaster hill, right? So we've had kind of a wild ride since Matt's been city manager. But we have a strong team now. a super strong team, and that is thanks to your leadership, Matt. And we have a clear vision for the future. And your legacy is right here. It's right here on the wall. And we won't forget it because it's right here on the wall, right? We won't forget it. So I have seen you award the Elma Coin of Excellence to a lot of people, but I wanted to make sure that you had your own for your life. So, so in appreciation for your dedication to the city of Elma.
You put my name off. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you got the nameplate. Perfect.
I didn't
Thank
even
you
notice.
so
but I
much.
did.
It's like, take your name, like, see ya.
He comes in, he's like, wow.
Kind of rough.
Don't let the door hit you, huh?
Yeah.
You get a rebuttal, or you just wanna let it go?
I just,
No crying,
I
man.
know.
How about Tony? Tony,
Yeah,
what do you
Tony.
say?
Well, it's pretty tough following that.
Yeah,
That was good.
I would like to
Sarah
say,
keeps her silence for a long time, and then whoop.
she's been holding that in for years.
way to go, Sarah. Hey, I would like to thank the police and fire. You know, it's easy to forget how things were back in those times, and not only what you guys did, the risk that you took for yourself, but I can't imagine what it was like, the risk you took for your families too, because you had to go home when you were done doing whatever you were doing on a daily basis too. And it's easy, you know, as you're going through things and figuring how, oh geez, I didn't get to do this, I didn't get to do that. And what you guys were doing was very special, and you deserve all of this. I'm proud of the commission for what they've done tonight. Thank you guys very much. And Matt, I'll tell you what, it's just, everything you've done for the city since you got here, it's like, you bleed orange and black, I guess, I don't know. Because it's even more than this. It's all you did with Pal, it's all you did coaching the kids. You know, you just personified what this town really should be about. That's why in 2017 or 18, whenever you took this job, there was really only one person to take this job, and it was you. And I guess our job now is to go forward, just like Sarah said, you know, remembering the stuff that you taught everybody, and remembering that we all got to go forward together. And because there were fractures, I think, before, and I think you're the guy that it took to get everybody, all of us, directed towards what's best for the city. And we got to keep that attitude and keep that mindset, I think, all of us. But anyway, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.
Well said, Tony. Well said.
Doesn't matter, you're just gonna.
That's, thank you very much, everybody. I truly appreciate it. It's a strange feeling, because this is real now. It's very real. I love this town. I really do. And it's been a rough few months for everybody. That's for damn sure. So, thank you guys for all your support. And I'll still be around. Thank you. I'm done, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm done.
We have our
He's
own.
not getting away.
Thank you.
We know how to get hold of him.
Thank you. Very much.
Now he has way more time to volunteer.
You could coach again.
So, thank you. Just keep on doing. Keep on doing. The potential here is great. I think that we'll come out of all of this stronger. We really will at a point in time. And thank you guys for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
I gotta add my thanks, Matt. I have, you know, Tony said it wonderfully, you know, you were the person we needed when this opportunity came up a few years ago. I mean, you really brought something to the position that was lacking. and you stepped up and you did a great job for us, as you had before that at the police department, transportation. You know, we talk often, we have talked often, we don't always agree, but that's okay, you know, we say that all the time, we agree too much around here sometimes. It's good to disagree, and while we may continue to, like I said today, 30-year career, 30-plus years, and there's been a couple minutes of disagreement upon that. I consider you to be a friend. I consider you to be a very good city manager. I think you did a good job for us. I appreciate you stepping forward. And, the work as a police officer obviously speaks for itself. The city appreciates it, and we know, without a doubt, that you care about the city, and we know you care about all of the employees that you led for these last few years. There's no doubt in my mind that your caring is genuine, and I'm sure everybody will go along with that. So thank you very much for your service. It's been a pleasure to work with you, sir.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can volunteer on something together. Look forward to it. Okay. Now, you may have from the public want to come up and tell the truth.
Mark Williams, Public Safety Director. First, I'd like to thank the Commission for your support of the public safety. It makes our job a lot easier when we have your support, and we've always felt that we had your support, so thank you for that. Secondly, thank you to the city manager for his decades' worth of service to the city. It's meant a lot to all of us, and sorry to see him go, but retirement well deserved, so thank you, sir.
Jeff Hedrick, President Elma Police Officers Association, and just first, Sarah, I think you said a few minutes ago that you were thinking something, fell asleep, forgot it. I only called a dream. Matt, I'll see you yet this week, but quick question. You started for the city 2 years after me. And I'm still- what did I do wrong? No,
It's a great question.
seriously, I just, on behalf of the Elma Police Officers Association, I want to thank the commission for last week approving the contract, and then tonight approving the master's pay. So we appreciate it. I think I can say under the command of Mark and Kevin, our guys are going to continue to do everything that we can to serve the city, keep protecting.
I hope Blue gets a treat out of this. We didn't talk about hazardous pay for Blue, but I'll bring a special treat from Cindy Lewisburg.
Well, it was getting to the point where I thought we were going to have to get a therapy dog for a therapy dog. Seriously, thank you all very much.
Welcome, sir.
Well, while we've got you here too, I should mention, when we were talking about that contract, and Tony's supposed to help us remember, maybe if we can get you guys to help us remember too, we did talk about the language where the employee contribution was set at a certain rate. And I personally, and I think some of the commissioners agree that it should be set to a minimum, and if you guys, anybody cares to contribute more to the retirement program, to your own retirement, I would encourage that, and I think the language should be opened up to allow that.
We talked about
Voluntarily, yeah, not mandatory, but voluntary.
we talked about a letter of agreement, because that was what was negotiated, was that number.
Yeah.
And so that's what had to go in the contract, but you could do a letter of agreement if you wanted to, that could give if the plan allows it, and I'm assuming it does.
Okay. So, and I'd have to look to see what
It's
our
the-
number was,
Yeah.
but the
The
city
5.85
contributed that.
Well,
Say,
the
if
city's
you're
doing
The
what
allowed-
city's match is what it is, but if you want to contribute more than
More.
that,
Individual ones.
yeah, on an individual basis.
Which is a good idea, most of
Because
the
right
time.
now, it's written that it's 5.85, which is the
And
equal.
that's
You
it.
could, but
Okay.
if we did a letter of agreement, you could then contribute
Okay.
even more.
If you wanted to.
chose
Dan Kuhn is our business rep from POAM. I'll get with them on that. We would definitely.
But it should be
open to
nothing
that.
but a plus opportunity
Yeah.
for
We
everybody.
can
go
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
Like us are 16, we're match 6, but we can go up to like 16, we can contribute 16.
Okay, and yeah, we would definitely, we'll get a letter of agreement brought up on that, get it to you,
Yeah.
and then you can get the contract and that signed, so. Okay,
That may
yeah.
be
Well, we don't, you want you guys live in the
Entire
property.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that's what it is.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Anybody else from the public here in this commission?
Les Roseanne.
Yeah, I know. You missed me?
After the last couple of months, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Les Roseanne, a resident of the city of Elma. I am what do you call it, a American citizen, but I do have a residence. And I live in Elma. First, I have two things I'd like to discuss. First one is I'd like to address Matt's retirement. I'd like to express my gratitude to Mr. Schooley as he retires from the position of city manager. Matt, as you enter this next phase of your professional career, be assured your tenure has been a positive, stabilizing, and uplifting component of our city's system of governance. I would suspect, Matt, that you would be the first to admit, and I just witnessed it, that at times your heart was worn on your sleeve. But it was obvious to me and many others that even during the most challenging of times, your decisions were predicated upon doing what was in the best interest of our city. It's my humble opinion that your guidance and tutelage has spawned many positive outcomes within our fine city, and I believe Elma will continue to move forward during these trying times. Congratulations, Matt, upon beginning a well-deserved retirement, and rest assured that your dedication and love for this city did not go unnoticed. The other issue I want to discuss is what I've sat silent for the last 3 months, and it was time to say something. I would like to express my dismay and utter sadness over the chaos which locally elected or appointed city officials have been forced to endure over the course of this last year. I commend all of those city officials for carrying on as collectively we all have been thrown into the maelstrom of a society that at times seems to have gone completely mad. A very good friend of mine summed the situation up in the most simplest but yet eloquent of terms when she told me, people just don't follow the rules anymore. COVID was bad, but that deadly virus alone did not poison our societal apple cart. What has transpired at both the national and local level is much more insidious than a virus. Simply put, it often does boil down to people not following the rules as they trample over societal norms during angry tirades which are often bereft of facts and logic but rife with unrelenting anger and rage. The local zoning request has been illustrative of what can happen when some people, not all, but some, simply don't follow the rules and in turn undermine their credibility. The rezoning debate has raged for months, but up to this point I've remained silent in spite of what could only be described as an out-of-control clown show being forced down the throats of our local elected officials. Attempts to wrest control of any governmental function or educational opportunity through fear-mongering, intimidation, disruption, innuendo, personal attacks, threats, or undifferentiated disorderly conduct is never acceptable. The Michigan Open Meetings Act is very specific in describing what is allowed as First Amendment protected speech at a meeting of a public body. Anyone, including non-residents, may address the government body during a meeting time set specifically for public comment. The public body may require a person wishing to speak to provide a name and address. They may also set a time limit for each person wishing to address the public body, which is locally 5 minutes unless additional time is granted by the mayor. I may go just a tad over tonight, Mayor. Topic matter may not be restricted as long as it is not disrupted or a personal attack. The time allocated to public comment is just that. The speaker addresses the public body and the public body listens. It is not a back and forth debate between the speaker and members of the public body or of the assembled costume actors waiting in the wings. After months of debate and public input, the City Commission granted the rezoning request 2 weeks ago. The theatrical show, along with its assembled cast, has now moved on to its second act in a much larger tent. Recall petitions have been filed in the local courthouse and will be reviewed by the Gratiot County Election Commission tomorrow morning. The authority of that commission is limited to determine if the petition language is factual and understandable. As I read the law, the Election Commission may not use any other criteria to determine the validity of the filed petition. That is left to the voters if enough valid signatures are obtained to move the process to a recall election. I will be the first to admit that this country is in dire need of comprehensive immigration reform, but none of that necessary legislation will be initiated by the Elma City Commission. Immigration reform is simply a federal matter. The Elma City Commission has oversight of the Planning Commission and should not be attacked for exercising that oversight responsibility. Tribalism and abject partisanship should never be the underlying factors to justify a recall campaign of any elected official for simply doing their job legally and within the provisions of the city charter. I will close with the following quote from President Franklin D. Roosevelt. In vain, they seek to hide behind the flag and the Constitution. In their blindness, they forget what the flag and the Constitution stand for. Now, as always, they stand for democracy, not tyranny, for freedom, not subjection, and against a dictatorship by mob rule and the overprivileged alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Yes.
Thank you, Les.
Hard to follow that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Certainly say I would agree, and I just can't say enough how proud I am of this commission. We clearly have disagreed on that particular issue as well as others, but the professionalism and the way everyone behaved and conducted themselves with their opinions, we didn't agree, but everybody behaved very well. I'm extremely proud of everybody sitting on this board, and
So that is why I have sat silent, because I didn't know how to phrase it. I mean, it was like, what is happening? I mean, it's just an attack on local democracy, if nothing else. And when I was writing the column, it used to be sometimes I would ruminate for weeks about things in the head and how to put it together, and I've been doing this, and I have confessed to one member of your commission that I have been thinking about this, and I just didn't know how to put it all together yet. So I got up this morning, and before I knew it, it was afternoon, even though I started at 7.
so did you have a dream too?
Well, you don't want to ignore my dreams, come on.
But like I told Greg, what we are doing is we're disagreeing, but we're showing to the community members we can all get along and moving forward and you know what I mean? Like,
That's why there are this many members of the committee, so that you don't have yes men saying everything.
yes, and we just have to show, to prove to the community and the state, whoever is gonna watch us, that we can disagree, but we're all moving forward for the best of our community. We're not gonna hold grudges and, so that was what you said is.
It's appreciated, certainly,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to address the commission? I hear none, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening. Roger? Support. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
everybody coming tonight.